The courtroom was hushed as 17-year-old Malik Carter took the stand. He wasn't tall, and he didn't dress flashy, just a plain navy hoodie, khakis, and sneakers that had clearly seen better days. He walked with quiet steps, shoulders slightly hunched, eyes avoiding contact with most people in the room. His hair was short, his face calm but unreadable. The judge, Harold Benton, had already made up his mind. He leaned back in his chair with an air of tired arrogance and flipped through a few papers with a loud sigh. "This should be quick," Judge Benton muttered loud enough for everyone to hear. A few chuckles floated up from the gallery. Malik didn't react. He just stood there, holding a worn folder close to his chest like a shield. "You know what they say," the judge continued, tapping his gavel lightly as if bored, "the quiet ones are always hiding something. Let's get this over with." Malik's public defender, a young woman named Claire Reeve, glanced toward him with concern. She stood and addressed the court with measured clarity. "Your Honor, we have video footage from the school library. It directly challenges the narrative presented by Officer Delaney and the administration." Judge Benton rolled his eyes. "Ms. Reeve, I sincerely doubt some grainy hallway clip will change what we already know." He glanced toward Malik again, his tone sharpening. "What exactly were you doing in that library, son? Hacking the system? Tagging books? Hiding from class?" Malik's lips parted, but the words came slow, careful. "I was trying to help." Benton let out a short, bitter laugh. "You help?" That's when Claire reached for the remote and turned toward the monitor. "With the court's permission," she said sharply, "we'll let the footage speak for itself." The room shifted. The mood changed. Something was coming. And Judge Benton, still smirking, didn't see it yet. Claire pressed play. The courtroom lights dimmed slightly as the large screen flickered to life. A grainy black and white timestamp in the corner marked the footage, Monday, 2:16 p.m., Westbrook High Library. The camera view showed rows of bookshelves, quiet and still, until a sudden commotion erupted at the far end. Two uniformed school resource officers stormed into the frame, one with a hand on his holster, the other pointing toward a student crouched beside an overturned chair. It was Malik. But what happened next made the room lean forward in silence. Malik wasn't hiding. He was kneeling beside another student, Tommy Jenkins, the school principal's son, who was clutching his chest and gasping for air. Malik's hands moved quickly and confidently. He pulled off his sweatshirt, folded it beneath Tommy's head, and then reached into his backpack. From it, he retrieved an emergency inhaler. "He's got asthma," Malik's voice could barely be heard over the ambient mic. "I've got his extra inhaler. I told him to keep one with me, just in case." The officers didn't listen. One lunged forward, grabbing Malik by the collar. The other knocked the inhaler from his hand. Tommy began thrashing in panic. Malik screamed, "Let me help him." The courtroom sat frozen, watching the officers fumble, only for Malik to twist free, grab the inhaler from the floor, and administer it just in time. Within seconds, Tommy's breathing eased, his face no longer purple. The footage paused. Claire turned back to the courtroom. Her voice was level but cutting. "This footage was sent to us anonymously last night. It was never included in the official report." The judge didn't move. Claire stepped closer to the bench, folder in hand. "Your Honor, this young man didn't trespass, disrupt, or hack anything. He saved someone's life." Judge Benton's face was pale now, the smirk long gone. His gavel sat untouched. And Malik? He still stood silently, head slightly bowed, eyes fixed on the floor, not out of shame, but from the weight of what he knew would finally be heard. A silence fell so deep, the hum of the courtroom's ceiling lights seemed louder than ever. Judge Benton cleared his throat, but the words didn't come. For a man used to controlling the tempo of the room, the footage had struck something deeper than embarrassment. It was a mirror. And he didn't like what he saw. He reached for a glass of water, hand trembling just slightly, then finally spoke. "I was not made aware of this footage prior to today." "No one was," Claire responded firmly. "It was intentionally excluded from the official statement by the responding officers. There are gaps in the body cam timeline, too. We'll be pursuing a full review." She turned toward Malik, nodding softly. "He deserves more than silence, Your Honor. He deserves a formal apology. And a clearing of all charges." The judge exhaled through his nose, glancing around the room. The audience behind the bar, teachers, parents, a few reporters, had shifted. No longer disengaged. Their eyes were sharp. Watching. Benton leaned forward slowly. "Mr. Carter," Malik looked up. "I may have spoken too soon," the judge began, voice flatter than usual. "And perhaps with too much assumption." Claire raised an eyebrow at the choice of words. Assumption wasn't quite an apology. Benton caught the look but powered through. "Effective immediately, all charges are dismissed. Your record will be cleared, and the court extends its recognition of your actions during that emergency." A slow murmur spread across the courtroom, followed by quiet nods of approval. But Malik remained still. Stoic. Claire gently touched his arm. "You can speak if you want." He hesitated. Then, for the first time, Malik raised his head fully and met the judge's eyes. "You didn't know me," he said calmly. "But you talked to me like you did." Benton blinked. "I don't need your recognition. Just don't do that to someone else." With that, Malik stepped down from the stand, clutching the same folder he had walked in with, nothing more, nothing less. And this time, the room stood up for him. As Malik walked down the aisle between the courtroom benches, every eye followed him, not with pity, not with suspicion, but with something new. Respect. A few people stood quietly, without prompting. Others followed, one by one, until a ripple of standing figures filled the gallery like silent applause. No clapping. No cheers. Just the weight of recognition. Even the bailiff, a stiff and unreadable man for most of the trial, gave a slow nod as Malik passed. Judge Benton remained frozen behind the bench. His usual commanding presence had crumbled into something else, something awkward, almost hollow. The power he wielded felt suddenly borrowed. Claire gathered her notes and followed Malik outside the courtroom. Reporters immediately approached, voices rising with questions. "Malik, how does it feel to be cleared? Were you scared when they grabbed you in the video? Why wasn't this footage shown earlier?" He said nothing. Claire raised her hand. "No comment at this time. My client and his family will speak when they're ready." They stepped outside into the bright sunlight. Malik paused, blinking at the sudden light. His mother was waiting on the steps. She didn't rush him. She didn't cry. She just opened her arms, and he walked straight into them. "I saw it," she whispered into his ear, holding him tight. "The whole thing. I saw them finally see you." He didn't answer. He didn't need to. Claire stood to the side, quietly scanning her phone. A message had just come through. Anonymous tip, check library footage from 2:25 p.m. camera 3. There's more they didn't show. Her eyes narrowed. This wasn't over yet. Claire's fingers hovered over her phone screen as she read the message again. Anonymous tip, check library footage from 2:25 p.m. camera 3. There's more they didn't show. The original clip had ended at 2:18 p.m., just after Malik gave the inhaler to Tommy. She had assumed that was the end of it. But someone out there clearly knew otherwise. "Malik," she said gently, stepping toward him on the courthouse steps. "I need to ask, did anything happen after the footage we showed?" Malik hesitated, eyes drifting away. His mom looked between them, suddenly concerned. "There was yelling," he finally said. "From the officers. After Tommy could breathe again." Claire's heart sank. Did they hurt you? Malik lowered his voice. They didn't like that I moved fast. Said I was too slick for my own good. One of them knocked over a shelf on purpose. Told the principal I did it. I just stayed quiet. Claire's jaw tightened. And that part wasn't in the video? He shook his head. They took me out before the camera turned. Claire didn't wait another second. She pulled out her phone and called the district's legal liaison. This is Attorney Claire Reeve. I'm formally requesting full access to all library camera feeds from March 12, starting at 2 p.m. through 2:40 p.m. Every angle. Every second. There was a pause on the other end. Then, I'll need clearance from, no, Claire snapped. If I don't have it in the next 30 minutes, I'm filing an emergency injunction and going to the press. Your move. She hung up. Malik's mom turned to her. What's happening? Claire looked at them both, her face calm but sharp with purpose. They tried to bury what your son did right. And now I think they buried what they did wrong. Malik stood quietly for a moment, then opened the folder he'd carried into court. Inside were handwritten statements, from students. From a janitor. Even a teacher's aide. All backing him up. None of which had been read into court record yet. He held them out to Claire. I knew I'd need more than the truth. Claire took them carefully. Now, she said, they're going to wish you didn't. By late afternoon, Claire sat alone in her office, lights low, phone on speaker as she watched the new footage load onto her laptop. Camera 3, Library Corner. Time code, 2:25 p.m. The footage played. It was silent, but the scene didn't need sound. Malik stood just outside the camera's center view, talking to one of the officers, Officer Kearns, based on the name tag. The officer was red-faced, towering over him, finger jabbing the air. Malik didn't move. He didn't speak. He just stood there, still as stone. Then it happened. Kearns shoved Malik backward. Hard. Malik stumbled into a bookshelf, knocking over a few books. He bent to pick them up, but Officer Delgado, his partner, kicked one of the shelves hard enough to rattle the entire row. A loud clatter followed as it toppled sideways. Delgado turned to the principal, who had just walked into frame, and pointed at Malik. You see that? Unprovoked. Violent outburst. He needs to be removed now. Claire froze the footage. In just 5 seconds, they had built a lie, and forced everyone to see it their way. She fast-forwarded. Another angle. Another camera. Camera 4, time code 2:29 p.m., Malik was being led out of the library, backpack half-zipped, books spilling out of it. His hands were behind his back. Not cuffed, but held there. A quiet humiliation in broad daylight. She sat back, lips pressed tight. It wasn't just misconduct. It was a setup. Just then, her phone buzzed. A number she didn't recognize. She answered. Claire Reeve. The voice was low. Male. Nervous. I saw what you showed in court today, and I know those two. Kearns and Delgado. I used to work under them. Who is this? She asked. They did this before. To another student last year. Same tactics. Different story. The family moved away before they could fight back. Claire leaned forward, gripping the phone tighter. Would you be willing to speak on record? A pause. If you can protect my name. Her voice dropped to a steady whisper. I'll do more than that. I'll make sure this never happens again. She clicked record on her second device. The real trial was just beginning. Claire worked through the night. By morning, her office walls were covered in printouts, still frames from the surveillance footage, statements from students, time-stamped inconsistencies in the officer's reports, and now a fresh transcript of her late-night phone call with the anonymous former employee. A clear picture was forming, and it wasn't just about Malik. It was about a pattern. She organized everything into a thick binder and labeled it with a single word on the spine: suppressed. Just before noon, she walked into the district attorney's office unannounced. The receptionist started to protest, but Claire's tone cut clean through the hesitation. Urgent. Evidence of coordinated misconduct and falsified reports by 2 active school resource officers. I have multiple sources, footage, and formal requests for review pending. I'm here as a courtesy, before this hits the media. That got attention. Within minutes, she was in a private meeting with Assistant DA Leonard Rusk, a man with tired eyes and a reputation for avoiding public embarrassment like the plague. Claire slid the binder across the table. He flipped it open and stilled on the first page, a blown-up image of Officer Delgado mid-kick, seconds before the bookshelf collapsed. Claire didn't blink. They lied. The principal parroted what he was told. A minor was framed, and the only reason the truth came out is because that minor happened to stay calm long enough for someone to believe him. Rusk leaned back in his chair. What are you asking for? Immediate internal investigation. Suspension of both officers. Public statement from your office clearing Malik Carter and acknowledging the error. And I want a liaison placed in Westbrook High to oversee student-related enforcement going forward. Preferably someone not on a power trip. He stared at her for a moment. And if we don't? Claire smiled, just slightly. I've already scheduled 3 interviews. 1 national. 2 local. The headline writes itself. Rusk flipped through 3 more pages, saw the witness transcripts, the unedited footage, and the timeline discrepancies. He closed the binder slowly. You'll have a response in 24 hours. Claire stood. Good. Because after that, I go wide. As she left the office, her phone buzzed again, this time, a text from an unknown number: check your inbox. Kearns and Delgado filed reports on another student. Same week as Malik. Her pulse kicked. This went deeper than she thought. Claire rushed back to her office, heart pounding. She didn't waste time on pleasantries or calls, she dove straight into her inbox. There it was. Subject: Urgent, Incident Report from Westbrook High, March 10th attachment, Officer_report_Kearns_Delgado_student_R Wilson.pdf. She opened the file. The report detailed an alleged confrontation involving a sophomore named Ryan Wilson. According to officers Kearns and Delgado, Ryan had refused verbal commands, displayed aggression, and was removed from campus for safety concerns. But something didn't sit right. Claire ran Ryan's name through the school board's public records. No suspension. No hearing. No parental complaint filed. Nothing. She picked up the phone and called the school's administrative line. Hi, this is Attorney Claire Reeve, following up on a March 10th incident involving Ryan Wilson. I need to speak with his guardian. After some pushback and legal name-dropping, she was transferred. A woman answered. Her voice was guarded. This is Mrs. Wilson. Mrs. Wilson, my name is Claire Reeve. I'm representing Malik Carter. I know who you are, she cut in. I saw you on the news. Thank you. Claire softened her tone. I need to ask, did something happen to your son Ryan last week? Anything with the school officers? There was a pause. Then a sharp inhale. They slammed him against a locker, she said, voice shaking. Said he mouthed off. He was trying to get his math book out of his locker. He's barely spoken since. I didn't file anything. I was scared they'd make it worse. Claire's chest tightened. Would you be willing to meet with me? We can document everything. I believe what happened to your son is part of a larger pattern. Mrs. Wilson hesitated, but then quietly said, "Yes. Tonight." Claire ended the call, sat back, and looked at the growing evidence wall behind her. This wasn't about one teen. It was about power, unchecked, routine, and quietly brutal. She turned to Malik's folder and added a new tab next to it. Wilson, potential pattern evidence, then her phone rang again. This time, it was the district attorney's office. Rusk's voice was low, clipped. "We've suspended both officers. Effective immediately." Claire exhaled. "And the press release?" "It goes out in an hour. Malik Carter's name will be cleared. Publicly." But Claire knew this was only the surface. Because for every Malik, there might be 5 others who never got a folder. Never got a hearing. Never had someone to believe them. That was about to change. The press release went live at exactly 3 p.m. For immediate release, the district attorney's office, in coordination with the Westbrook School District, has officially cleared all charges against Malik Carter following a full review of new evidence. Additionally, Officers Kearns and Delgado have been placed on immediate administrative leave pending a full investigation into multiple incidents involving excessive force and falsified reporting. The district will begin a comprehensive review of officer conduct across all affiliated schools. Within minutes, the news exploded. Social media lit up with clips from the surveillance footage. Malik's name trended, not in shame, but in admiration. Journalists replayed the quiet strength he'd shown, the calm under pressure, the way he'd saved a life while nearly losing his own voice in the process. Claire sat beside Malik and his mother in a quiet corner of a local community center where they'd agreed to make a brief public appearance. Reporters gathered on the edge, waiting. Malik stood behind the microphone. He didn't look down. He didn't hunch. He didn't whisper. "I didn't come here to be a story," he began. "I came here to tell the truth. I thought if I stayed calm, it would be enough. But it wasn't. Some people see quiet as weak. Some people hear silence and assume guilt. But I know now, sometimes silence is how you survive, until someone helps you speak." Claire nodded from the side, eyes damp. "I'm speaking now," Malik continued. "Not just for me, but for every kid who was told their word didn't count. Who got pulled out of class, pushed down, and told to stay quiet." He paused. "I'm done being quiet." A hush. Then applause, not loud, not performative, but real. When the event ended, Claire pulled Malik aside and handed him back his folder. "You were right," she said. "You brought your own proof because you knew no one else would. But now people are listening. And not just to you." Malik looked down at the worn folder, the one head carried into court like armor. It was filled now with names. New witnesses. New statements. Other kids who'd come forward after seeing what he endured. "I want to help them," he said. "All of them." Claire smiled. "Then let's make that folder bigger." They walked out into the afternoon sun, no longer alone, no longer unheard. And somewhere, in another school hallway, a quiet kid clutched their own truth, hoping the world was finally ready to listen. 2 weeks later, Claire sat before a long table inside a packed community town hall. On either side of her were parents, students, educators, and now, several civil rights attorneys who'd reached out after seeing Malik's story. At the center of the table sat the folder. No longer worn. No longer just Malik's. It had grown. Inside were new statements: a freshman girl shoved into a locker for not answering fast enough. A senior boy falsely accused of stealing school equipment, with no evidence, just suspicion. A janitor who had tried to report Officer Delgado's behavior, and was quietly reassigned. Now it was all documented. It was all real. And it was all public. The school district superintendent stood at the podium, visibly uneasy. "I want to begin by acknowledging that the systems we trusted, clearly failed. Murmurs in the crowd. Claire leaned into her mic. Not systems. People. People failed. But it's people who can fix it too. The superintendent swallowed hard. Agreed. Which is why the district is launching a full audit of all school-based law enforcement practices and, effective immediately, will terminate any contracts with officers found to have violated conduct standards. Gasps. Some cheers. A quiet yes from Malik's mom in the front row. Later that evening, Malik joined Claire outside the building. You ever think it'd go this far? He asked. Claire chuckled. Honestly? No. But you walked into that courtroom with the truth. That's what lit the fire. He looked at the folder in her hands. Feels weird, knowing I was just trying to do the right thing. And you did. Then you kept doing it. Malik smiled, small, but sure. The camera crews were long gone. The applause had faded. But what was left behind wasn't a headline. It was change. And it started with a quiet teen no one expected to speak, until the world finally heard him.